So we're going to make an animated GIF in Photoshop. You can make one in After Effects as well, but I want to show how Photoshop can do animation and how there's some similarities and differences. And Photoshop is probably better in general for creating animated GIFs. It's a little bit of they have a exporting system that's a little bit simpler. So I'm going to get a video to use as the basis for my animated GIF. So I'm going to go back to my animation slides and find a good video to use. I'll use one of these early animations. Okay, so here's a video. This is YouTube, so I'll see if I can find this on like archive.org or something like that. So I just copied the name of the video and searched it, and let's see if we can find it somewhere else. Okay, it's on Wikimedia Commons. Okay. See if this is the same. Yeah. This looks like the right video. This one has some banding artifacts from the video format. Let's see if there's another format. No, it only has WebM. Let's see if there's one on archive.org. Okay, here we go. So they should have some other formats. Yeah, MP4. They have OGG as well, but let's go with MP4. I think this is going to be better quality. Yeah, so we don't see any of those banding artifacts. Although this one, the resolution is lower. But that's okay, we'll just go with this one. So I'm just going to download this MP4. And so on archive.org, if I click on the MP4, it brings me to this other site that's just the video itself. And so to download that, there's a little menu here. I can just click download. And so this is in the public domain, Creative Commons 1. So that basically means there's no copyright. I don't have to cite anything on this. So that's good to know, but I'll keep this in mind. Okay, so my download is done. I'm going to go to the Finder and go to my Downloads folder. And there's my file. This one, I guess, is from the Wikimedia site. I'm going to delete these. Don't need these here. To trash. Okay. And I'm going to put this one in my main folder. So I'll drag this over to the desktop and go to MMP 100. And let's put this in animation. Okay. And it's kind of a long file name, so I'm just going to shorten the name a bit. I'll just use the name of the video. And so then I can just open this directly in Photoshop. And what you'll notice is when, oh, whoops, that's not what I want. So we have to go to Open With, and it doesn't give me this option, so I'm going to drag it onto the Photoshop logo over here. So I'm going to drag it onto Photoshop. And you'll notice that it's going to open up in the timeline view. So it knows that this is a video, and so therefore it needs a timeline. If I had just opened Photoshop regularly, so if I was in like the defaults essentials view, I wouldn't see that timeline. You can still see the layer down here, and you can see that it's a video. But if I want to edit the animation, I need the timeline. So I can go to Window and find the timeline here. And so this is a similar timeline to what we have in After Effects, but it has not quite as many options. It's a little bit more limited. Photoshop, is not generally a video or animation software, but it does have some video and animation functionality. I can also go to Windows and go to Workspace, and there's a Motion Workspace, which has some adjustments that are more geared towards doing stuff with the timeline. but I'll probably be fine just sticking with essentials and leaving that timeline there. Okay. So we just want to edit this a little bit. So I'm just going to make a little looping GIF, like the kind you would share on the internet. So there's a lot of similarities to the Photoshop interface. If I want to loop or change where I'm looking, I can use this little timeline guy here. And it's not letting me play. Let's see. Okay. I'm not sure why it's not letting me play. Maybe I have like a dialogue open somewhere. Okay, maybe it... Okay, I'm not sure what changed, but now it's playing. So we can look through and find part of the drawing or the animation that we want to use. I can also zoom in using this little slider down here. And I think I can go here, and I think there's a button to zoom to this selection, although I don't see it on here. Okay. So I'm just going to choose a part of this animation to make a little loop. So I'm just watching, looking for something that would be good. Okay, that little bit at the end is kind of funny. He's running into this building, and then he falls out the top. Could probably turn that into a little loop. So I'm just using the timeline playhead just like in After Effects. I'm going to go back to where I want to start here. So right after the elephant turns into the building, I'm going to select this layer and use the scissors to make a cut here. And then I'm going to go to where I want to loop. So right there. So it's not going to be like a perfect loop, but I think it'll look fine. So then I'll select that one and click the scissors again. And so this is the part that I want to loop. So I'm just going to delete the other selections and zoom in a little bit. And so now I have a little loop here. And it's like 5 seconds, so it's actually kind of long for an animated GIF. So let's see if we can speed it up. So if I click on the little arrow on this layer, I have some options here. Again, it's a lot more simplified than After Effects, but we can actually change the duration and the speed of the clip. So let's 400 is maybe too much. Let's try 200. And so it's going to be twice as fast. And so we can, so it's looping after it gets through here. So let's go and find where it repeats, like right here, and just cut there. And so now it's about 2.5 seconds, which is a better length for a short animated GIF. So that's pretty good. I didn't look at the frame rates. So let's take a look. So the timeline frame rate is 12 frames per second. So that's not very fast. Let's see, actually we could just increase the frames per second. Okay, so that looks fine. So now if we want to layer some stuff, so we could actually animate the video layer, but I'm going to leave it as is. and let's animate some text on top of it. So in my layers, I have this video group that it created when I added the video. I'm going to add a new layer and put it above the video group so it'll have its own layer in my timeline. And so now I can drag this layer back, and if I want to cut to match the two layers, I can do that. And so I can create as many layers as I want, and I can group them if I want to animate them together. So if I wanted to animate something with my video, I could put it inside of the video group down here. But if I want to animate something on its own layer, I can create another layer here. Let's put our layers up here so we can see them better. Let's see if I can get this whole panel up here. Okay. Okay. So for a meme, we could have some text. So I'll hit T for the type tool and make a little box and put in some text. You can see I already have this font selected, but the meme font that you see most of the time is Impact. So if I want to get that, I can just type in Impact for the font. And let's see, so what should we say for our text? Let's put it in the middle down here, and we can say it's a good meme quote if we're running away from the cops. Say that TFW. Oh, I have two layers now. Oh, I accidentally created an extra layer. Let me delete this layer and then clip this guy. Okay, so let's see, he's running away. Don't really have a funny caption for this. I'll just say TFW, you're on the run. And if I want to do the meme style, I can use some effects here. So I can click on the layer and go to the effects and add a stroke. And let's make this smaller so we can see. Oh, I can't make it smaller. Let's make it 2 pixels. Oh, that's too big. Okay, so our resolution is actually really, really small. Can I do like 1.5 pixels? No. So I'll just stick with 1. That's fine. Maybe I'll center it. And if I center it and do 2, that looks better. Okay, so I'll change the position of the stroke. And okay. So with this text layer, I can add some animations like we would in After Effects. Again, I don't have as many options, but if I click on this little arrow here, you can see I have things like the transform, the opacity, the style, and I can also animate the text wrap. And it has a keyframe just like it would in After Effects. So let's say we just want to do a simple animation of the text falling into the frame. So I can move ahead to the end and keyframe this transform and then move back to the beginning. And if I move the text like up here, you can see it added this other keyframe for me. And now we can get that animation going. And if I move the keyframe over here, it'll move there. I could move this keyframe up a little bit. And if I change it, maybe I want it to go all the way through. I can keep dragging it if I'm on that keyframe, and it'll go through. So the transform, in this case, unlike After Effects where I have control over specific things like the position and rotation, the transform is actually all of those different things. So if I hold Command T, I can scale, I can rotate, and you can see it adds a keyframe. So it's gonna, I have to hit Enter to do that. So you can see it's gonna actually do all of that stuff for me. So if I want to have like kind of a goofy animation, I can have it rotate around and hit enter, and it's going to add that keyframe in there. And that actually kind of looks funny because it looks like the character that's falling through. So yeah, I can animate different parts of the transform just by making transformations and saving it. So it's a little bit more limited, but we can do a simple animation if we just want to create something quickly in Photoshop. There's also the opacity, the style, so I could change the style of the text, like the color or something like that, and the text warp. Okay. So let's go over exporting it, because that's actually where most of the options come in when we're creating an animated GIF. Any questions before we do the export? So to export an animated GIF, it's not actually supported by like the more recent version of the Photoshop export. So when I go to File and go to Export, you can see the Export As brings up what we looked at last time, and there is a GIF option, but it's not animated. It's just this first frame of the GIF. And I don't think there's any option to animate. So if I want to use the animation, I have to go to Save for Web Legacy. And so the GIF format is still very prevalent on the web, but there are newer formats that have smaller file size, like videos, as we talked about. So if we want to save an original animated GIF, we need to use this legacy version. And you can see one of the main things when it came to creating GIFs is that they needed to be really small, because early on the internet, to share something on a website, it had to be really small to load over slower connections. So there's a lot of different options here for making the GIF more compressed. And so we can see what these different options have an effect on the outcome of the GIF. So we can play it back here. Okay, so you can see there's a lot of compression just from the beginning. So it looks very different than the original video. And in some ways that could be kind of cool, like you can play with those to get different effects. But in other ways it makes it kind of hard to see what's going on. So you can also see at the various settings down here what the size of the file is going to be. Right now it says 926K, which is not that bad for like modern devices, but it would be pretty slow on like an earlier system. So let's stop and go to the beginning. We can also choose the looping option. So normally you have forever, but you can do once if you want. And so let's look at the first frame, or let's go a couple frames in and see how the different compression changes. So all of these settings change the algorithm for how the video is compressed. So one of the main things we can do to make the video smaller is change the number of colors that are in the video. So with 256 colors, there's a lot of grays and variation, but we don't really have that much color in this image, so we can probably get away with a lot less. Like if we do 128 colors, you don't really notice the difference, but we cut out like 200 kilobytes. If we go to 64, still don't really see the difference. Now we're down to 660K. If we go to 32 colors, we're starting to see a little bit of the effects, but still looks pretty normal. And we're still losing colors. If we go down too far to like 2, then there's not enough information to actually display any data. But even something like 4 colors could be okay, depending on the other settings that we do, or maybe 8 colors. So let's try 8 colors and see what other settings have effects. So the other settings are how it does the compression. So perceptual, if we do selective, that's going to look a little bit different. We can see there's actually a lot of green in this video. Adaptive, restrictive. We can switch it to grayscale so we can get rid of that green if we don't want that. Can change it to black and white. That looks kind of interesting, although we lose a lot of the data there. So let's go back to perceptual. And then there's also this thing called dither that it adds in between the different pixels. If we go with a pattern dither, we get a slightly different effect than the diffusion, or if we go with noise. So I think actually, what if we do 4 colors? No, we have, so there's a lot of background noise. Maybe we can do 16 colors. Actually, I think 8 colors is good. We can turn off transparency. That'll save us some information. And let's see. We can change the style of compression from bilinear or bicubic. All of these are just different algorithms that decide how the data is saved. And you can see the different effects it has on the animation. So anyway, once you play around with these settings and find something you like that's relatively small, so 500K is not bad. We can save this. So if I click done, this just like goes away. We need to click save. And we can put in our animation. I'll put phantasmagory1.gif and hit save. And so if I go back to the Finder, here's my GIF. And it looks pretty good. These settings aren't too bad. There's a lot of like noise in the background, so I might want to play with the settings more to try to get rid of that. But overall, I think this looks pretty good. And so yeah, now I have an animated GIF. Obviously, there's a lot more I can do with that, but that is kind of the basic idea for creating an animated GIF. Save this. Okay. All right, any questions? Anything you guys want to try? Okay. All right.